Hi everybody, welcome into MNF IRE. It's Monday night. It's the night after the night before in some cases. Welcome in. Brought to you in partnership with Pundit Arena. We're joined today by the usual lads. We've got Mark, Brian, Colin. Gentlemen, good evening. Guten Tag.
Look how smiley the other two are following last night's results.
Tinged with a bit of sadness as well, Colin, because our quarterback is now in the likelihood he's out next week. But yeah, good win. Top of the division for the time being.
Yeah, the Patriots get written off by everyone, including myself, and still win. It's like 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003. Yeah, basically the last 20 years all over again. It's good. It's good.
All right. I mean, I was about 6 years old whenever Tom Brady started playing in the NFL, if we're going to start that. But here's the crack, boys. Before we look at tonight's game, there is a situation developing in the NFL. Now, if you're somebody watching this that maybe doesn't watch the NFL every week, or regardless, if you're somebody that watches it every week religiously like us, the NFL has got a problem at the minute with COVID. There is no doubt about it. And let's, first of all, Brian, you were saying off camera there is big news in the last few minutes about the San Francisco 49ers in relation to their current law in Palo Alto, I think, or Santa Clara.
Yeah, it's been kind of discussed over the weekend that the likelihood is they'd have to move their home games out of Santa Clara because the governor there wants to shut it down, and he's got his wish. They're now going to play the remaining home games in Arizona. So they are due to play the Arizona Cardinals. So that's an extra game that will be played in that stadium. But yeah, look, it's probably not a surprise. And you touched on it, and we all have over the weekend, that it's starting to creep more so into situations again daily in terms of the COVID situation. You know, we had a number of them early in the season, but the last few days it's really been the hot topic, and of course your Broncos team in particular.
Well, let's look at the Broncos team. I'll start with you, Mark, because you're about to jump in there, man. Obviously, thoughts on the 49ers moving. And the Broncos, for anybody that isn't a Broncos fan, the Broncos played last night without a quarterback. And I'm biased as a Broncos fan, but after many teams had players that tested positive and the games were moved. Look at the Ravens, look at the Steelers, look at the Titans. Many players tested positive. The Broncos have all their quarterbacks just quarantined, and the game wasn't moved by 24 hours. Mark, first of all, maybe your reaction to the 49ers news and just where you think the NFL stands at the minute with COVID-19.
Yeah, this may be a short MNF IRE because I'm not sure if you might close down the meeting and discuss when I get onto the Broncos. But on the 49ers, I was just going to add that Santa Clara County is actually one of the most restrictive areas from a public health perspective in all of America. And they're obviously tightening up because they've seen an increase, the heart of the valley, heart of democratic California, if you like, very much. So they've been really, really restrictive in relation to things. And look, the NFL's been lucky. The NFL have had fans at games in various places because of the differences in local jurisdictions, local counties. So this is the first time it's really impacting upon it. With regard to Broncos and COVID generally, yes, Michael, this is the first time that we've had quite an extreme circumstance, but it's also the first time the team has broken the rules so badly by not enforcing mask wearing and the like. The Broncos, let's remember as well, are repeat offenders with Vic Fangio's fine earlier in the season as well. So, you're going to get fined again. You're going to lose you're going to lose a pick somewhere along the lines because it's already happened to the Raiders and it's already happened to the Saints. It will be a 6th or 7th rounder, nothing important, nothing like you wouldn't pick up a Tom Brady or a Julian Edelman with, or a Terrell Davis for that matter. But I love it because if it wasn't for COVID and if it wasn't for Roger Goodell and the Shield, we would not have had a game like we did yesterday with, Taysom Hill and himself only throwing for about 78 yards and not looking really as functional as a quarterback. But then one pass for 13 yards on 1 of 9 of completions, running wildcats, running different things. I mean, I was waiting for the wishbone. I was waiting for the spread option. I was waiting for the triple option. It could have been so much more fun. But I mean, look, at least Denver has not seen such abject quarterbacking since at least the time of Tim Tebow. So that's a positive to look.
I enjoyed Tim Tebow. Now, Colin, I think you're going to have to respond to what maybe Brian and Mark are implying here. So the floor is yours, man.
Well, I don't know if we should let Brian go next and then respond, or the one thing I might say to Mark's point, and look, we will certainly discuss this a little bit more, but if we're talking about rule breaking and teams breaking the rules, the Titans gathering, I think that's up there with what the Broncos did. I do think we should probably hear from Brian and Brian's point, and then we'll get the Broncos perspective perhaps.
Colin, I actually thought you were about to imply about the last 20 years of the Patriots breaking every rule under the sun. You know, I thought that's where you were going, but I'm glad I got that one in instead. The league's focus is on containment. It's not on their focus isn't on whether you have a quarterback available to play the game. So every situation to date, they felt that the containment wasn't there in terms of managing players potentially picking up the COVID, and that's why games have moved to the extra day or the Tuesday, or a game has been cancelled. In the Broncos case, they felt it was contained because they figured out quickly it was only the 3 guys in question, which happens to be 3 quarterbacks, unfortunately, and therefore they felt they were in a position for the game to be played. So, I can understand your frustration not having a quarterback, and yeah, it was a mess, to be honest. I know Mark can make a bit of a joke about the game and all the various different plays, but I did feel sorry for the Broncos in the sense that there's no quarterback out there. But he doesn't care what position that particular player is. They can't play. He thinks he's done the right thing in terms of, what the protocol was that was put in place over the past few weeks. And that's where we're at.
Colin, can I just say one thing before you give your brilliant opinion here? There's a lovely picture doing the rounds last Thursday during Thanksgiving of 2 New Orleans Saints quarterbacks having dinner with each other's families. Now, they're about half a meter from each other. God forbid they were to test positive. And secondly, gentlemen, talking about containing this, are we really led to believe that every team in the NFL are in their own little bubble with quarterbacks and in their own little bubble with wide receivers? Because they're not going to be on the training field. I think the whole thing is frankly disgraceful. I'm sure, Colin, that you'll go into this now. I think if the Broncos had an owner, that never would have happened. And I think any other team in the league wouldn't have taken that. And it was embarrassing as a fan to watch that last night. Absolutely embarrassing. And surely, Colin, they couldn't even have looked at the rules and tried to allow us to bring in a quarterback. Hell, even Tim Tebow, who hasn't played a snap in 6-7 years, bring him in for a laugh. No, Colin?
Kaepernick.
Well, yeah.
The issue for me is, and look, Vic Fangio came out, and Vic Fangio very publicly, stated how unimpressed he was with the QBs. But the issue for me is this news broke as we were recording on Saturday night. The meeting, and I only discovered the meeting took place on Tuesday. Every time I hear about the meeting, it seems to take place earlier. It's almost like, how do we go from Tuesday to Saturday? That I want an investigation into that. I want to find out what happened, because that to me is the worst aspect. If they wanted to punish the Broncos, they could have done so, right? If they said, now Frank Clark went on the COVID list due to a close contact for 24 hours just a few weeks ago. Funny that with the with the Chiefs. But if they wanted to say the Broncos, right, they took off their masks in the meeting room. That's it. Why didn't they say that on Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday and allow the team time to bring in a veteran, rather than and then they turned down the team's request to have a coach suit up? It is absolutely. I know they're saying that they don't care, that it was about containment. Are you telling me if that was the O-line guys in a meeting, and those O-line guys, it was 3 or 4 O-line guys, that game wasn't getting pushed? It suited the league perfectly to have a team to make a point of, and that it was the QBs, and that you only have one guy to come in. If that had been a right tackle, a left tackle, and a center, I guarantee you that game would have been pushed 24 or 48 hours.
And also, I have to say, for the division in which the Saints are in, I think majority of teams, probably the Bucs, to be honest, because they're obviously the team that are in the running. Obviously, they've since lost, but they would have looked at it as that's a gimme for the Saints now. They've won the game. And yeah, Colin, I was disgusted as well that it broke during our recording, because I never got an opportunity to jump on the Saints -6 before it went up to 16.5 points.
As a man who made money on the Saints -6, I can't share your pain, Brian. I could just say you should have been on it earlier. Look, Colin made the point there that you want an investigation into how the league conducted their review and stuff like that. Colin, join the Saints with Bounty Gate, the Pats with every investigation that's gone to the sun, especially the so-called Deflate Gate. The investigation into how the NFL conducts its operations ain't going to happen because they protect the shield, and it just will not occur. They won't lift the veil, and we'll be waiting for that for a long time. Look, I share your pain. I share your frustration in many respects. I did make a joke about it, but it wasn't good for you as Broncos fans. It wasn't good for a spectacle, for TV viewers. Not that anybody was in the stadium, but for TV viewers. And it's not good for the long-term sanctity of the league. But is it something that every team has stood up and taken notice of? Absolutely. If you're in a playoff contention right now, you're saying, under no circumstances do you make these. You have a get back coach or a step back coach on the sidelines. You're going to have COVID coaches and COVID champions around the buildings because they should be doing this and they should be being careful. And there are some, like the Raiders, who haven't been careful today. It's a salient lesson and a purient lesson for you all. And yes, if the Broncos were in playoff contention, might there have been greater flexibility? Very, very possibly. But, unfortunately, you are the guinea pig in that scenario. But there was good football at the weekend, and there's more to look forward to as well.
And let's I want to make one final comment as a Broncos fan before we move on to looking at tonight's game. Lads, this is my Mark moment. When the UK voted to leave the European Union, Nigel Farage stood up in the European Parliament and said, "You've been laughing at me for many years. Well, you're not laughing now, are you?" Well, let's be quite frank. One thing that stood out last night was the Broncos need an owner, and the Broncos are going to get an owner in the next 18 to 24 months. And there's one very well-known billionaire that wants a team, and we use it every day. And we all know who we're talking about when I say Jeff Bezos, because whenever that happens, gentlemen, a team that are 3-time Super Bowl champions won't be rolled over again. You won't be laughing then. And I think it's a disgrace. I think the Broncos have been let down by the league. I think numerous teams have been let down by the league because this, quite frankly, now starts a very dangerous precedent. Trying to take an advantage out of a team. Let's see what happens next week on Thursday and Friday. If God forbid, I hope it doesn't happen to any other team, because anybody that gets it, please God, they'll be okay. But let's see what happens, gentlemen. I cannot wait to see the game go ahead, because I can't wait to watch a team that isn't mine have a wide receiver that hasn't taken a snap the whole season, never mind a quarterback, playing a quarterback in the NFL. And on that note, let's look at a game today. 2 quarterbacks playing in this game, thank God. Seattle Seahawks at the Philadelphia Eagles. Seahawks 7-3, trying to go 8-3, trying to overtake that whole Tampa Bay situation after last night. Eagles 3-6-1. Big game for the Eagles, gentlemen. I'll start with you, Brian. This is a must-win game for the Eagles after this Giants game last night, yeah?
Yeah, if the Eagles win, they go back on top of a very poor division. But it's difficult to see how they can win this game. There's a lot of conversations now over the past few days that they're going to try mix up the offense and bring Jalen Hurts in to have more snaps. And I don't know whether they're going to be playing him a quarterback at the time, but basically try and mix up the whole scheme for the game to really off-put the Seahawks defense, which, to be fair, has been generally poor all season, with the exception of the last 2 games where they held in check in terms of I can't recall that particular game. It was the game against the Rams. They played well there. And then last week against Cardinals, I got there in the end. So, but you look at the stats on Wentz, and Wentz predominantly will be the quarterback tonight, and that's where you just can't see how they can win the game. 40 sacks this season. The offensive line is a mess. He's the highest interceptions of 14. They did very little last week against the Browns with Myles Garrett out, albeit the weather was very poor. So it's very hard to justify how they can go in this game. But I don't want to get ahead of myself in terms of the Giants. But I just have a sneaky feeling that the Eagles might just show up tonight. But whether they have enough or not is another thing.
There's a man, Colin, starting to sound a bit nervous, being atop of the division.
Well, I don't think he needs to be nervous in relation to this evening's game, because think about this. Last week, the Eagles played the Browns, and the Browns rolled out Myles Garrett, and they still sacked Wentz 5 times. And I mean, if like anyone else, you would say that like the Seahawks give up so many yards in passing, but he doesn't look the same player ever since that knee injury. He just doesn't look the same guy, and it shows how impactful injuries can be, because coming back mentally, all of that just has such an impact. If they're to do anything, they need to get Miles Sanders going, right? He's been very good for them, but they have used him sparingly. It feels a little bit like the Broncos and Philip Lindsay, where they should utilize him more. And this is a guy who can catch out of the backfield as well. Um, I think that the Eagles, though, um, their defense is it does pretty well, but offensively they struggle, and they may have some joy in terms of getting to Seattle, because Seattle have allowed a lot of sacks as well. I think 34, a lot of QB hits. But and I think Russell Wilson was sacked 3 times last week. But you have to say, I just don't see the Eagles scoring enough points.
Yeah, I mean, Carson Wentz is not the Carson Wentz of 2017, 2018, who electrified the league. Even though he had poor and inconsistent offensive line play there, he still managed some miraculous escape or some miraculous throws in those games. And yes, Eagles fans will rightly point to potentially a differentiation even in the skill position talent, especially even out of the backfield at that stage. But the reality is he is not looking like the same person and the same player. And from that, and let's be fair, he's been on IR generally at this time of the season, most of the time for the last 4 years. So, they take their toll. Those accumulated hits, that accumulated damage adds up. It's not getting easier. Lane Johnson is out on season ending, on IR. Actually, it's not season ending. Of course, he could come back, but they don't expect it. And so the inconsistency in his O-line is going to continue, and the inconsistency of Carson Wentz therefore continues. I mean, I saw one great statistic whereby there's only 5 quarterbacks in the history, if you go back in time in terms of analyzing QBR, that have gone from top 5. It was ESPN stats, going from top 5 to bottom 5 in 2 or fewer seasons. Only one has bounced back. One that bounced back was Brett Favre. Fair enough. He bounced back and had a decent career. The others are people like Case Keenum and Mitch Trubisky, and a lot of names you don't really want to be associated with them. The other one that really struck me was Case Keenum's in there, which you kind of expect given the precipitation from Vikings to Broncos, in fairness, guys. But Matt Schaub, I mean, just remember that year when he just couldn't stop throwing pick sixes and just imploded. And I feel sorry for Phillies fans, because that's what they're seeing. They're seeing just implosion. He's cratered into the abyss in terms of his performance. Not all on him personally, of course. There's lots of myriad of factors, but he is not inspiring any hope otherwise. And yes, in terms of this game, could the Eagles defense get after the Seattle offense, who's been a bit sputtering and inconsistent? Absolutely. But as bad as the Seahawks defense is, I do think the Philly offense is still worse. And that's the fundamental problem they've got tonight.
Cratered into the abyss. That's like me driving to Letterkenny after Brexit, boys, in a couple of months. Look, let's be quite frank, gentlemen. Carson Wentz is the JJ Watt or the Odell Beckham of quarterbacks in this league. 1 week he's grand, the next week he's done for the year. He just doesn't look good at the minute, and I think it speaks volumes when the New York Giants are top of that division. I mean, no. I'm happy for you. I'm delighted for you. I really am. But tonight reminds me a bit like ABBA. Gimme, gimme, gimme a Man After Midnight. Now, Mark, I hope you enjoyed that. But the Man After Midnight tonight is not going to be Russell Wilson. It's not going to be Chris Carson. It's going to be DK Metcalf. Because that's Saints. Wow, the Saints have really got to me last night. That Seahawks offense is real. They're for real. There's no fans in Philly. The only Philly special tonight, gentlemen, will be the performance by the Seahawks. For me, it's not even a contest. It's quite annoying that Sunday Night Football last night was a whitewash. It was just a disaster of a performance. It was gone after 20 minutes, maybe 2 minutes in some cases, and I think tonight will be the same. Prove me wrong, Philadelphia. I cried for you like an eagle a few years ago on the Super Bowl. I love Rocky. Yo, Adrian, we did it. If they do it tonight, gentlemen, it could be like Rocky 2. But I think tonight's going to be like Rocky 4. And the Philadelphia Eagles tonight are Apollo Creed living in America.
If they somehow do it tonight, just lock up your horses, is all I can say.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, I want a bit of a razor, because when we win the division, you'll be giving me a little bit of respect.
Nah, I'll be grand. Like, grand. We know, like, look, there's a long way to go. A long way to go.
I know.
A long way to go. It's a bit like Cavan this weekend. Everyone's, oh, it's great. Cavan's in the semi-finals of All-Ireland. Yeah, they're not in the All-Ireland yet. Do you know what I mean? Just wait. See if you can get over the semi first. We have to do a first for our show anyway, and that is look at the game, which is tomorrow night. Oh, Colin, look, a team that have multiple COVID cases and have had to move the game from Thursday at 8:20 Eastern to Tuesday.
Yeah, Sunday.
Sunday, and then Tuesday. So to this game, if it happens, but this is the joy of the internet. If this happens, we get we get another kick out of this video on Tuesday. But if it happens, gentlemen, the Ravens are 6-4, Colin, against the 10-0 Pittsburgh Steelers. Big Ben, black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow. Colin, first of all, do you think this game is going to go ahead? And secondly, if it does go ahead, take all the COVID situation out of it. If it does go ahead, who wins it for you and why?
I have real doubts. You've seen even in the last hour, I see Marlon Humphrey tweeted virtual Tuesday night game, and Juju Smith-Schuster came back, our best Madden player versus your best Madden player. When players are tweeting like that, when the Ravens haven't been able to go through a walkthrough, and they're talking like we'll reassess at 5 p.m. Eastern, that gives cause for concern, to say the least. Because I mean, in terms of containment, right? I've been told a few days like running, oh, the Ravens got this under control. There's not going to be any more positives. Oh, look, another one. Oh, look, another one. Oh, look, another one. And don't forget, this all came from Ravens coach not following protocols, didn't report, that he was experiencing symptoms, and well, this has led to this. I think the NFL did the right thing in postponing, because you don't want to put player safety at risk. I personally think this is the first Week 18 game that we will see.
Yeah, and just to elaborate a little bit more on Colin's points, the Ravens showed up for the walkthrough this morning at 2:30 Irish time, and we're told they're actually waiting outside to get in, waiting for the NFL to give them the clearance. Got the phone call, yeah, go back home and return at 10 o'clock Irish time, just to get that walkthrough. And there's also snow to be factored in. The weather now has not been kind to them either, because there's snow expected in Pittsburgh tomorrow, and the recommendation is that they have to fly this evening to be there on time, just in case there's any adverse weather that would delay flights tomorrow. So not only are they trying to do a walkthrough this evening, they're also then trying to have to get themselves to the airport to get on a plane. It's an absolute chaotic situation. But on the game itself, because I don't want to lose sight of the fact that the game may play and who's going to win the game, RG3 is going to be the quarterback for the Ravens. And the last quarterback, you might recall this guy, Kyle Orton. He's the last quarterback to go in as a backup against the 10-0 team. It didn't work out too well that evening. That Steelers team is firing on all cylinders. And even with Lamar Jackson playing, I still honestly couldn't see the Ravens winning. The only way I see the Ravens winning is to utilize the run game with Gus Edwards, because he's predominantly now their running back for the game.
But they're the golden team of the NFL. Brian, they've had multiple games postponed. They're the golden boys of the NFL. They have had this game postponed now. God help the people that have tested positive. I hope they're all okay. But They're the golden boys of the NFL. Now,
Well,
sorry, Mark, I'll let you
they-
bring your point across the ball.
I will just say, as a Broncos fan, I think it's important. The NFL did the right thing. I believe the NFL did the right thing. I don't believe the golden boy thing. I think this is what the NFL should have done, because can you imagine if the NFL allowed it to go ahead and suddenly you've got an outbreak in the Steelers camp? And we talked about it briefly the other night. You've got James Conner, cancer survivor, who now has COVID. This is the league should just accept week 18, week 19, week 20, push back the Super Bowl if needs be. Do the right thing here, Roger Goodell.
I think my issue is I'm saying, I don't mean that I don't want to take one opinion. I'm saying they're the golden boys because they had their game postponed. We didn't.
Well, look, I'm going to give you my pick now. The Steelers are going to win convincingly in this game, okay? And you might think they're the golden boys. By the time this game is over, they'll be the golden girls.
I'm actually all on board Michael's golden boy train, because with the ownership obviously being very close with Goodell and whining Jim whines as well, but John Harbaugh has whined about enough things to do with the Patriots, including the fact that he didn't know the rule book sufficiently. I must admit, as a pure fan, I don't have a lot of love for the Ravens, but a bit like the Broncos, I do actually have some empathy for the circumstances which they're going to play this game in. They've had the worst coronavirus outbreak of any professional sports team. They've had one positive test every day, at least, for the last 8 days. They have 18 players already now put on the reserve list. And it's not just Jackson. Mark Andrews has had a positive test and will not play. Matthew Judon has had a positive test and will not play. And Willie Snead has had a positive test and will not play. So you want to make a case about Gus Edwards, I would say, well, he might be the only bloody person, along with RG3, actually that's on the field to actually do anything. So in terms of pure football, it is super, super difficult. And I am on the Steelers early from last Tuesday as well. So my point spread on that one. So I want the game to go ahead. It's super impossible to see beyond the Steelers, even if they weren't unbeaten already. Even if Lamar was playing, I would still be backing them to win this game. They're a more complete team on offense, both in the run game and the pass game, and on defense. Steelers-Ravens games are always smash mouth, in your face, big rivalry games. The O-line and the D-line of the Ravens will absolutely put it up, whether they play Tuesday, whether they play week 18, whether they play on the moon on one day. But it's just not going to be enough. They just don't have enough players. They don't have enough capability. And like Colin, I agree that the league has done the better thing and the right thing here in postponing the game and postponing the game. Too much money at play, so they aren't going to put it into week 18. They're going to play it Tuesday night, only the third ever NFL game on a Tuesday night for all you stats fans out there.
Ryan, have you another point to make? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No. I'm just making the point that Mark's alluded to it. Whether they had a full team or not, I'd still be very confident the Steelers will win. Steelers defense is giving up less than 20 points in 3 or 4 games in a row now. They're on a roll.
Well, we're all Moharas here, and I think it's great we all have good opinions on this situation. It's something that we'll probably never see again, please God, after the season. So it's interesting to see what happens week by week. Obviously, we hope everybody is tested positive as well, and that everything works out in the long term. For me, I don't think the game's going to happen. I know we've talked about it for the last 5 or 10 minutes. Don't think it's going to happen, and Colin is bang on the money. This is it. They have somehow got over 11 weeks of this. We have sat on different podcasts from April talking about, will the season go ahead in time? They've got to week 12. Fair play to them. But now we're looking at week 18, week 19, week 20. There is no doubt about it. It is the worst kept secret in sports that the NFL has Tampa booked out for a month, until the Giants get there, Brian. And I'm being serious, that they have a chance as it stands. And look, I just can't see this game happening. You can't move it to Thursday, because then that messes it up. I said it before we were recording, and I'll say it now. There was rumours on Sunday morning about the league shutting down for a week after week 12 and reevaluating what's going to happen. If it's week 13 or if it's week 14, they are eventually going to have to get the team, put them into a hotel at the airport, ship them to training camp, ship them back, and ship them to the game and ship them back. And they're going to have to find a way to do it, or else the season is not going to finish before Easter. And I think that will happen in the next 2 weeks. Will that mean that there's no games this weekend? I don't know. Will I look like a genius if it happens in that sense? No, because I'm an idiot. But if the game does go ahead, it'll be the Steelers. It'll be an asterisk. It'll be 11-0. And unfortunately, I said it last week, they're not valued for that. And I think that will show later on in the playoffs when you see the Chiefs going up a gear, the Bills going up a gear. The Bills. So we'll see what happens, lads. It's just a real pity, and I hope Baltimore recover well. They're always a good team in the playoffs. Me and Colin know that especially. So,
Michael, just
yes,
one more point. If the season does get pushed back, the selfish NFL fan inside of me and all the other ones who watch this show will say, brilliant, because it's a long enough off season. If they want to play the Super Bowl at the end of February, great. We get an extra few weeks of games. Happy days.
Yeah, and it goes into a whole different show as well. And I know we have to end it here, but and Colin, you said it yesterday. What happens if a player goes down 12 hours before the Super Bowl COVID test? You can't play that game. So we are in a situation where it is unknown time. We've seen the NBA do it. Just multiply it by 300 and do it in that sense. Guys, it's been a pleasure chatting to you. I think we'll be back on Thursday regardless. I will be anyway. Maybe just talking to myself. Who knows? I think there's enough to talk about, to be honest.
Absolutely. There's so much going on. We don't need a game to have a session on the NFL.
Mark, have you any Seamus Heaney or any metaphors that you want to leave us with before we?
No.
Okay. Colin, are you like me? Have you recovered yet from Hinton yesterday?
Look, kudos to that kid. 21 hours notice, not the position he plays in, and more power to him. There was nothing else that he could do. We in the famous words of Bill Belichick, we're on to Arrowhead.
It was Brian. It was like asking a priest from Cross Malina to become Pope for the weekend.
Look, the guy hadn't even played a snap in the NFL. He's on the practice squad and he's put in a quarterback.
At least you're top of the NFC East, though, Brian. Yeah, that's all good.
With a difficulty around quarterback now, Daniel Jones. It looks like he's going to be.
It must be awful, Brian. Top of the division, and your players are playing. It must be awful. Lads, it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure as always. We'll see you on Thursday. Yeah, and thanks to everybody watching. Thank you to Pundit Arena. The show is in partnership with Pundit Arena. Gentlemen, I'll see you on Thursday.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. See you.
Michael, we'll see you then. Take it easy.